We'll call this meeting of the school committee for the city of Lewiston, Maine to order for April 4th, 2022. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin with committee member introductions. We'll start with Omar and come around.
Omar Osmond, Senior.
Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
Megan Parks at large.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Jake Langley, Superintendent.
Bruce Damon, Ward 1.
Tanya Whitlow, Ward 4.
Ashley Medina, Ward 5.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Paul Bopelant, Ward 7.
Linda Scott, City Council Representative.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items of the consent agenda that members would like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda is public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personal matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee, be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to the Lewiston Public Schools. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and move on to item 5. To review and potentially vote on the LRTC first robotics field trip. I think Miss County, I think that's you.
We had this group in recently who were rebuilding and retooling their robot for the next layer of competition, and things have gone well. So Omar, our student rep, is a key component to that, and we have one of the advisors, Kathy County, at the podium.
Turn the mic on. The person, the button with the person.
Like that. Thank you. Can you hear me? So I'm Kathy County. I'm the lead mentor for LRTC 8023, our district's first robotics competition team. So, do you have questions for me, or should I just say what we're trying to do next? That, okay. So we had a competition this past weekend. And like I stated at our last meeting, or the last meeting that you approved, the field trip we were on, Omar Osman is the driver for our robot, and he is amazing. So give a hand to him for that. And of course, there are 4 other team members as well, and you can't have this robotics team without everybody participating, and they're amazing. So you know that we won actually the competition at Pine Tree. We were with a winning alliance. This past weekend, we did not rank as well. And I did send you all an email with that information in it. At the bottom of that email, there is a link to one of our very successful matches. I put the one with the outliers and Bob in it. And so you can see again what we do. Our number, of course, is 8023. And in that particular match, our bumpers are red. That'll help you find us. We are an amazing defense robot, which is why we were chosen last time. Like I said, unfortunately, this time we weren't. There were 40 teams. We didn't rank nearly as high as we had wanted to, but we have one of the best defensive statistics records in New England. And right now we're ranked 47th out of 183 teams in New England, which is awesome. because we've only been to 3 competitions ever. And so we're calling this year our rookie retake year. We were shut down during our first year during COVID. So this next weekend that we have not officially qualified for districts, we're about 99% sure that we will qualify because they take the top 80 teams. There is another competition this coming weekend, but when we've crunched the numbers, it leaves hardly a doubt that we will be going, we'll be in that top 80. So that is what the field trip form is for, to go to the Big E, excuse me, which is in West Springfield, Massachusetts, for the DCMP District Championships. It would be meaning that we would leave Wednesday afternoon. The competition is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we are looking to have approval for an overnight stay for 3 nights, and also to be out of state and in Springfield, Massachusetts. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I think we should all be very proud of basically a rookie team scoring so well. And these competitions are, I hope, very beneficial for the students. Is there anyone on the committee that has any comments or questions for this county? Mr. Bopalon.
Do we have paperwork that goes with that? I did not see any. Oh, thank you.
It was an amendment this afternoon
Thank you.
around the timing, but we wanted to get it in front of you because of our next meeting being after break. Didn't want to have them waiting for us.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you. I just want to say congratulations, great job, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Thank you so much for inviting us tomorrow night. And I don't know if you've been able to read, we are going to the city council meeting tomorrow night, and then Kristen Cloutier has also asked us to go to the State House to be recognized there. So I appreciate so much the support that you're giving us. This is really incredible. Thank you.
Ms. Whitlow?
Yeah, congratulations. So I was just noticing the total cost here, and it's all through sponsorship and fundraising. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys have done for fundraising and sponsorships?
So those are old dollars. We did a lot more our first year. I had written 3 grants. We got 3 $6,000 grants, but we weren't able to use all of the money because of COVID. So we did rely on a lot of that money this year. Well, we didn't do any fundraising last year. It was just impossible. It was nearly impossible to keep a team together. So we haven't done as much this year as we had liked. So some of it is leftover money, and also Rob Callahan, LRTC is our largest sponsor at this point. And so he has helped us along that way, but we do have some things in place right now, and we are still collecting every nickel we can from Clink donations with bottles and cans. And we are setting up some more larger fundraisers as we speak. We had to pause a little bit because this competition season has been incredibly busy, and the kids have put in hours and hours, countless hours. But we do have a lot more coming up to do. So in not just collecting bottles and cans, we'll do a calendar raffle, and we're going to do a lot of those one and dones to try to get as much money as we possibly can to finish off this year and set us up for next year.
Please let us know what you guys do for fundraising so we can help be a part of that, okay?
Yeah, I
Thank you.
definitely will. Thank you so much, because I'm hoping that with this and our city council tomorrow and then the state, our name is out there. We really do want to get not just donations, but sponsorships from, larger companies or corporations to help us along each year. So getting our name out there, and I really thank you for all of that you've done for us to help us along that way.
If no one else has questions, we would need a motion to approve this field trip.
So moved. Second.
And so it's moved by Ms. Park, seconded by Ms. Whitlow. Is there any discussion from the committee? All in favor? That is unanimous. Ms.
Thank you.
County, I wish you the best of luck. Omar, you as well. And bring back some success for us.
Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda is to receive and potentially vote on the Lewiston Public School Administrators Association contracts for fiscal year 22-23. Mr. Superintendent.
So we do this annually, and these contracts come up. These aren't new negotiations. These are just, with your approval, we'd be issuing contracts to our administrators that we have included in the packet.
Ms. Whitlow.
I'll go ahead and approve the administrator contracts.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ms. Whitlow and second by Ms. Medina. Do we have any discussion? Ms. Parks.
Can you just very briefly explain why some are 3-year contracts, some are 2nd-year probationary contracts? What determines where they're at on that?
Sure. It's actually based on the negotiation process and how people become what step. And so if you have prior administrative experience, but it's your first year as a principal, it lands you as a different step versus someone who's new to our district as a probationary person who has 2 years of probation. And there are some other criteria that might be imposed, whether it's through agreement with the superintendent or other for probationary years, is for a learning perspective.
Others or questions? Ms. Bowden?
I'm just curious, how long are these probationary contracts under probation? Like, how long do you keep them there?
So we, again, those are negotiated. So the only reason we would extend probationary periods is if that's a conversation that I've had with the administrator. You all would be aware of that, not necessarily something we would talk about in open session, but for new employees, for new administrators, it's 2 years. And then it goes to a 3-year cycle. I will note though, and the administrators are very aware of this, their contract as it's written, it's not a multi-year guarantee of any kind. It's a lot different from some of the other contracts that we have. And so if there's a need to revisit something that we're able to, our administrators have done some pretty good work through this pandemic. Most of them have not even looked up for 2 years. So I'm proud to bring this list forward, but there are some criteria. Yeah.
Other questions? Seeing none, there is a motion to approve the administrator's contracts. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to recognize Lewiston Public Schools staff and students. Superintendent.
We have a little bit of both tonight. We did have a couple that were queued up that couldn't make it, so we're already ready for our next meeting. But we have some exciting news, and I didn't know if Alyssa Roman would come up to the podium. She's our nutrition and transportation director, but was engaged with some students in an activity that she can explain. But there was some success there, both from nutrition staff and student.
Good evening. So I am certainly really happy to be here. So annually, the State of Maine Department of Education Child Nutrition Department, that's a mouthful, has a competition with Farm to School. And the whole idea is to bring local agriculture into the classroom and also from the classroom into the cafeteria behind the gates. So getting nutrition staff involved, students involved. We've done this competition before, and we usually struggle to find a student. So this year we teamed up with our partners with Food Corps, which is based out of St. Mary's Nutrition Center, and our 21st century programs, including after-school cooking clubs, and one of them being the McMahon After-School Cooking Club. So not only did we pair up with them, but I had to teach them a little bit about child nutrition because it wasn't just like a cooking show where you go and make food. So we had to follow the meal patterns for child nutrition. So they had to have whole grains, meats, fruits, vegetables, and the state, because it's a competition, threw in 2 mystery ingredients, one being buckwheat flour, the other one being beets. And they were local Maine products. And we also had to have local organic ingredients as well as something called USDA foods. And if you guys aren't familiar, the district receives foods from the federal government, surplus foods. So we also had to incorporate some of that. So I am really, really pleased to announce that our 2 people from the Child Nutrition Department, it was Alicia Smith. And then we had Alan, and I don't want to mess up your name, last name. Lemess. And they partnered together. They worked after school on preparing the recipe because you don't just go to a competition like on TV and just make this stuff. So they prepared, bought the ingredients, and they went to the Lake Region Culinary Center. They competed against Auburn, an LRTC student, and they won. And so I am super, super proud that they won their regional match. So that means after April vacation on the 26th of April, they will be going to the Augusta Culinary Kitchen at the DOE headquarters for child nutrition. And they will be competing against 2 other teams to win, hopefully, the state championship of this. So this is the furthest we've ever made it. I'm super, super proud of both of their efforts. They have an hour to prepare breakfast and lunch, present lunch, and then like have a half hour more to do the other one. So it's like a really quick competition. It's timed. They watch sanitation. They watch what they're wearing, how they're chopping, make sure they have all their fingers. It's pretty cool. So I'm really proud. And I can't leave out that we also had a secondary team from Connors that was gonna go, and we didn't quite get there. So they do allow multiple schools to do this. So I'm hoping that next year we can get even more. So I'm super impressed and proud of their hard work. So thank you both.
Congratulations. Did you want to say anything? Talk a little bit about your experience. Was it at least fun?
Yeah, it was very fun. I'm happy and glad that I've been a part of this and I was chosen to be in the cooking club and everything. And hopefully we can win.
Yes.
I'm gonna start to cry. It was just a very rewarding experience, and I'm glad I was able to do it. And I had a great partner, so hopefully we can move on and win state.
Great job. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck. Ms. Scott.
I just want to say you got us all choked up. We're all over here, wiping our eyes. So congratulations, and the smile on that little man's face. Totally impressed. Thank you.
Ms. Hurd.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask what you made for breakfast and for lunch.
So for breakfast, we made a buckwheat flour biscuit with a cinnamon maple butter, with a fruit bowl that consisted of blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, grapes, and we made a buckwheat granola just to show the difference between the seed and when it's pressed down, it's the flour. For lunch, we made a chicken soft taco that had lettuce, tomato, cheese, We made a beet salsa, and then we also made a beet corn salad with a fruit kebab drizzled with honey. And then for the USDA, we had the diced chicken, we used the cheese. Oh, and also for breakfast, we had cheesy scrambled eggs, and we sprinkled a little dill on top just to give it a little punch. So we tried to bring it up a little bit other than the school, just to jazz it up.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job and good luck in Augusta. Next up, if we could have Miss Martin come to the podium. Margaret Martin has been the advisor, mentor, coordinator of Indigo Inc. for Lewiston High School for, I don't know how long, for 5 years now. Back when I was there, if I'm dating myself a bit, she had done some really good work with students and articles and trying to get the word out. And trying to push this communication tool to a different place for students who are interested in journalism and spreading a message within the school. She's got some extraordinary students and would like to share them. But before you do, I'd like to thank you. I've seen you chase the articles and be the editor-in-chief at times and really create a lot of moving stories or capture a lot of moving stories and help guide the kids or students in that effort. So thank you to you for all your work also.
It's been my pleasure, truly. So for people who don't know, Indigo Inc. is the LHS newspaper, and Collage Magazine is the other publication that I'm the advisor for, and that's the Arts and Literary Magazine. And I don't normally do a public recognition of all the students, but honestly, at the end of last year, we had all our meetings virtually. Every single one, and we put out 4 full, really good issues. And that was not just me. The students were incredible. And so I just feel, and all of them are still with me this year. And plus I have a few extras who are all just extraordinary. So I really wanted to be sure that they were publicly acknowledged for that and other things. So we have the first person who's involved in everything, and I don't think he actually sleeps. I'm fairly sure he never does. But Omar, come on up. Omar Osman, as you all know. And Omar has been the webmaster, tech leader, and a contributor for articles and editing for the last 2 years. And I wrote on his certificate, always at the ready with new tech ideas and the mad skills to make them happen. I'm always sending Omar little emails like, hey, do you think we could do this? And literally 10 minutes later, oh, it's done. So stay there and we'll get everybody else up. The next person is Kylie Walton. And Kylie, who's a junior this year, I met her, it seems like 1,000 years ago, but it was really just about 1.5 years ago when she was in 10th grade English with me. And I knew that she was interested, and I had never actually seen her face also at that point, but I knew she was very interested in writing and possibly exploring that as a career. So one day I said, hey, Kylie, are you interested in being involved in the newspaper and or Collage Magazine? And she was just like, yep. So she came on board. I showed her the magazine that I had cobbled together the previous year with, you know, just random stuff I'd pulled from other teachers and my students. And she looked through it and she said, this is nice. It's a little long. I think we should do 2 issues this year. We've only ever done 1 in the past. And that was the start of the whole thing. And she's just been amazing ever since. So she is the Collage editor-in-chief and a contributor. And she's also been a copy editor, a really instrumental one for Indigo Inc. and a contributor as well. So. And I think there's just one more person here. I have 3 other students, unfortunately, who couldn't make it tonight, but the third person is Caleb Reisfelder. So Caleb showed up 3 school years ago when he was in 10th grade, I think.
Yep.
His sister Jill was involved in Indigo Inc. and she hauled him along one day, and he's been there ever since. And he's been the layout editor. I taught him a few things, and next thing I know, he's just like, oh yeah, I got this. And he really did. So just thrilling to have you on the staff too. So, and I wrote on his, because you were the rock who rocked it. We published 11 issues in your 3 years with Indigo Inc. Thank you for everything. And the other students, I'll have them, I'll just drop these off to them, but they were Kalista Karras, Riley May, and Nafiza Tasnia, who also contributed hugely to the whole operation. So thank you. Thanks for giving us the space.
Ms. Bowden.
Sorry, before you sit down, I just have a quick question. Are your publications available online for parents or the public to read?
Yes, they are. They're
Okay.
on the LHS website, and I'm going to make a promise to Osmond that someday we'll have our own real website, but there are limitations based on the LPS publishing rules for student work. But there is a link if you go to the LHS website and look under, I think it's student information or activities or something, and it says publications. And we've got all the issues we've done since I started and beyond on there. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you so much.
They really do have some good pieces too, some moving pieces, some interesting and engaging, entertaining pieces. They really do mix it up. They do a great job. Thank you all. Next up, I'd like to ask Principal Cindy Gish and Assistant Principal Michelle Winslow to come to the podium. We have some Geiger recognitions we would like to share.
Good evening. So I just wanted to share a few of our staff members that I just wanted to take some time to recognize them and let them know that we appreciate them. We tell them often, but it's sometimes nice to hear in a different platform. Since the beginning of the school year, we've really sent the message to staff. Our kind of theme of the year was a sense of belonging, and that was for our students, our staff, our families, any visitors that came to the school, to really, when they walked into the school, to feel like they belonged there and that they were welcomed there. And that really started with our office staff. So we've worked hard with our office staff. We have weekly meetings with our secretaries and the administration, just to talk about things that are coming up, because it's really frustrating for secretaries when they have all of a sudden 80 parents showing up and they knew nothing about the second grade celebration. So we try to keep that communication a little bit better now. But I wanted to recognize 2 of our secretaries, one that is in the front office and our special ed secretary. We've had some change in our office this year. Our one of our secretaries that worked at the front window that's been there, had been there for a really long time, took another position in LPS. So we had some change over there, and Alicia has really been instrumental in getting our new secretary up to date and trained. And every time I ask her, hey, can you show Maureen this? She's like, I already did it. And it's just really nice to know that it's just getting done. Because if you've been in an elementary school office, it's a busy place. So it's really good to feel that it just happens and we don't even have to kind of worry about that. It's just taken care of. And Allison King is our special ed secretary. And we haven't had a special ed supervisor since the beginning of December. So that's been kind of a challenge in her role of kind of who that point person is for her and making sure we're in the loop of communication she's getting from central office. And she's coming to us and she's going to different special ed secretaries and supervisors, and she's finding the answers when she needs to. And that's been super helpful too. One thing I can say about both of them is they jump in and help whenever we need it. We laugh, but it's really not a joke that we call it King Cab Service, because when we need something dropped off or someone picked up, Allison's right there with the van keys and she's ready to go. And Alicia usually jumps in with her. But they're willing to help with anything. We have the walkies on and I'm like, can someone come help with rider arrival? And they're outside in a second, or can you go get this kid a lunch? And they just do it. They're super flexible, and we just wanted to take a minute to let them know how much we appreciate them. We have two more people, so I don't know if you want me to finish or them to come up first. One's not here. I thought he was going to be able to make it, but another thing just along those lines of that sense of belonging, we have our music teacher and our strings teacher, Greg Boardman and Neil James, who's our music teacher. Greg is the strings teacher. That if you come in on several mornings, they're playing music for kids as they walk in. And it's just such a nice feeling for kids to walk into the building. And that's the first thing that they're seeing and hearing. And kids are literally like standing in front, dancing along. They sometimes have little instruments that the kids can join and make music with them. And everyone is smiling. And it's just a great way to start the day. And Greg is quick to, we mentioned one day in weekly events that St. Patrick's Day was kind of a wear green. And he said, hey, can I have some kids come and do a little Irish jig on the announcements? And he was there that morning with a couple of his students, and they started the day for the whole school with some music over the intercom. And that's just a great way to get the kids just kind of set off on the right tone in the morning, and starting their day with a huge smile on their face. So we really appreciate them starting their day a little earlier and being in the hallway and creating that really positive atmosphere in the school for our students.
Coming up to the podium, we have Principal Charlotte Nile, who is going to share a recognition for one of her staff.
Good evening. So in addition to being super proud of Alan, I did bring along a staff member to recognize tonight. I brought Eric Bullier. He is a longtime teacher of McMahon. This school year, he's in the role of being a social emotional response to intervention teacher. So it's a lengthy title and he does a lot. He works in our boost room, which is a social emotional support center. Students go there to check in for positive check-ins. Students go there when they're struggling with their behaviors and need a place to get reset. He helps with that. He helps write behavior plans and respond to behavior plans. He's just a super awesome, positive role model to our students, and they need him and we need him as well. He wears a walkie-talkie every day and he responds to a lot of in the moment calls. And so he's supporting teachers, he's supporting students. He's constantly having to adjust his approach, which is hard because there's a lot that happens throughout the day, but he does a really good job responding to each individual student and what they need. We really wouldn't be able to operate the building without him. So I wanted to recognize Eric.
Believe it or not, that's it for tonight. But we have lots of recognitions that are, again, still on the way. And There were actually some more connected to the things that were brought up tonight, but they were unable to make it. So we'll do it on a night that they can be here. But a lot of really good work's happening. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you all. Okay. We have several items on agenda item number 8 to review and potentially vote on a first reading for the following policies. The first one is policy BBA, School Committee Powers and Responsibilities.
So there's a whole list of policy items, and Assistant Superintendent Paquette can probably walk us through some changes, as well as the members of the policy subcommittee.
Ms. Bowden.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask only because a fellow committee member asked me, why so many policies all at once? Why are we reviewing all of these? And so I didn't know if you could just quickly explain why we reviewed this many policies at one time. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So by rule, we're supposed to review the entire policy manual during the elected term, which is 2 years. And so we did some math on what would it take to actually update our policy handbook. And so we'll have meetings like this probably monthly, unless we want to double up on another month. But I think in the work that we've done, and a number of members have brought up good points, that we're looking at policies and referring to them, and they haven't been updated since 2008 or 2012. And when things get to be 10 plus years old, they fall out of compliance with law. They fall out of what I think you all would expect, for language, for modernizing things. And so that's the effort. So you're going to see these, like I said, at least once a month, maybe even twice a month if it fits, some pretty heavy lists of policies. What we'd like to do for a process is have some changes noted, but many of these are they've just been reviewed. There's no substantive changes that you need to read up on. We are hopeful that you do read them before the meetings, but anything that's kind of a big shift, like we talk about, like the dress code policy or the pledge policy, those are more critical conversations. So even though the language didn't change a ton, it's very important language. So we would make sure that we would highlight those in public session and give people an opportunity to speak to them. Some of the others are just, we've read them, they still align to law, or they need a slight modification to align to law. And Karen's done all of that layout so that that's kind of the update for you on that particular policy. Is it's just got some small changes that align to current law.
So what we would be doing then is we would do a quick review of all 16 or whatever there are of these. Then if there are issues, then we would take one motion and approve or make recommendation for changes on all of them in one shot.
That would be my recommendation, to do a first read as a group, unless someone wants to pull something out. There may also be some policies that Karen would recommend that we forego the second reading on another date and maybe approve them in full tonight. But again, anything consequential or it's probably the wrong term, anything that could really inspire others to want to have more voice around it, we're going to navigate those in a very deliberate first and second read, and we'll talk about them more openly. And that's really about time. And as a school committee, you can always bring back policies, even if they were just adopted for review.
Ms. Eames?
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that the subcommittee has been at work on these. And so we've systematically gone through each of these. And you should also pay attention to the parts that are in red, because that's the things that are different that we have shifted, and usually to align with law.
Yeah, I'll just add, several years ago, I don't know how many years now, maybe 4, we did have an audit of our policy manual by the Maine School Management Association. And that's actually the document that I have right here. They went through and went through our whole manual and gave us some recommendations, as well as some policies that we should add. About 2019, there were several policies that were recommended or laws that changed that need us to add policies to our manual, and that has not happened yet. So as I'm going through all of these and bringing these large chunks to the policy subcommittee and then having those discussions there, we will see that there are some that are not in our policy manual that we should potentially add. And then there are some that potentially can be removed. They're outdated, they no longer apply, or they're items that should sit somewhere, but the policy manual may not be the appropriate place for those to be. So we'll have those conversations with the policy subcommittee, and then from there, we'll based on what the committee decides, we'll bring them to you. So many of these in this chunk tonight, if you will, this big list, are just policies that need to be reviewed. The policy subcommittee had asked me to go through the even longer list that I had given them originally from this section and indicate which ones needed to be reviewed and which ones needed to be revised. So you do have several that just need to be reviewed. And if you open a policy, so if you're looking at BBA, which is the first policy, the school committee powers and responsibilities, you'll notice on that document, there are no red lines. There are no additional comments made or words added, except for at the bottom, it says reviewed in red. So even though it potentially stays the same, we do need to review it, and we need to indicate that it has been reviewed. So there are several like that in this list. So I think the process we've used before is you look through them, you let us know if you have any questions, and this might be one that you would choose to say things are the same, and this is one you would want to forego a second reading, or we can follow the process of a first reading tonight and then coming back for a second read on all of them.
I know there's a lot that was put out there in our packet, but I do want to make sure that everybody does read all of these ones that have to pertain to school board, committee rules and all that stuff. And I think these are really important. These are the basics and the guidelines of how we function. So I think these are really important. And if anybody has any questions on any of these, even after tonight's meeting, please reach out to myself or Megan or Linda, who might have some experience with these things.
So I did take the time to go through and read all of these and see what the edits were. And I'm comfortable with them. And so I don't know if I can make a motion now to just approve them, all of them as a first reading, unless someone wanted to, or anyone else wanted to talk about them individually, but I'm fine with approving all of them.
Ms. Whitlow?
Before we make a motion, Chair, can you read each policy? Yeah, so that everybody knows what we're actually.
Sure. Okay. Let me get my glasses so I get this right. The policies that we are voting on for tonight, or potentially voting on tonight, are BBA, which is School Committee Powers and Responsibilities. BBAA, which is School Committee Member Authority and Responsibility. BBB, School Committee Membership. BDD, School Committee Superintendent Relationship. BDE, school committee subcommittees. BEA, school committee use of electronic mail. BEC, executive session. BEC-E, executive session law. BEDA, notification of school committee meetings. BEDC, quorum. BEDG, minutes. IMBD, flag displays. BCA, school committee member code of ethics. BCB, school committee member conflict of interest. BE, school committee meetings. BGR, policy adoption procedure. And JLCB, immunization of students. That constitutes the entire list.
If I can just give you some, I can give you a break point. So after item L, which is IMDB flag displays, the policies below that are policies that had some revisions. The policies, including flag displays back up to A, were all policies that were reviewed, and there were no, we're recommending that they stay the same. So that's a place to know that there's a break there.
So I'll make a motion then to approve the first reading of these policies.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Ms. Bowden, seconded by Ms. Ames. Ms. Whitlow.
Yeah, I do want to make sure that we publicly state that there are no changes to the flag policy. I know that at one of the last city council meetings where we had some upset community members about when we changed our other policy about the Pledge of Allegiance, that they were very upset and they thought that the school committee was gonna, adjust the policy on the flag. And that they thought that we were gonna take the flag down and all of that. So we are still gonna do the same exact things as we always have been. We have to have the flag present. So just wanted everybody to be mindful that nothing is changing there.
Others? Ms. Parks?
If we were to waive the second reading, do we vote on this now and then make a motion to waive the second reading on some of them? Okay, I'll wait then.
Thank you. So I just want to thank the policy committee for the work that was done on here. Some of the language change, particularly the school committee member code of ethics. I just wanted to state that I really appreciate letter H. I will support a decision made by the majority of the board graciously. I think that was a very important piece to add, and I appreciate that that was looked at and put into there. And I fully support all the other changes.
Anyone else? There's a motion to approve a first reading of all of these 16 or 17 policy items that we listed. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Parks.
Thank you. Other than policy BCB, BGR, and JLCB, the rest of all of those on the list have either no changes or like small grammatical changes. So I would like to make a motion that all of the ones that I didn't list we would waive the second reading on those. It was easier to list the three than to list them. BCB, BGR, and JLCB would not be waiving the second reading since those have more substantial language changes.
BCB.
BGR and JLCB. Okay, sorry.
So it's item N, P, and Q.
Thank you. I should have done that.
Okay. So we have a motion to So.
I'll second that.
Sweet. So there's a motion to approve all of the items with the exception of N, P, and Q as a second reading. So these would become in effect after this motion. There's a motion by Ms. Parks, seconded by Ms. Whitlow. Did you? Yes. So there's a motion by Ms. Parks, seconded by Ms. Whitlow. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous.
Just for clarification, the other three, any concerns with those or just to have that second read next time?
I don't have any concerns with them. I just knew that we made more significant changes to those, so I figured it seems more appropriate to give people more time to ponder them.
I just say one thing.
Ms. Paquette.
The immunization of students, that policy, there was a change in law about immunizations, which is what prompted this one to come forward with this group. So I just wanted to put that out there. And if the public had questions or wanted to come and ask questions or speak on that, it was prompted by a change in the law that actually happened a bit ago, and we had not changed our policy to match that.
Ms. Whitlow.
Yeah, I think it would be fair to tell everybody that the immunization policy, it doesn't have, that has nothing to do with like vaccinations for COVID or anything like that. So people could get confused on that. So
I will say though, when this law was passed at the state level, it was a heavily debated law, but it was passed. And it changed some of the exemptions. And so this may have an impact on some students once this is passed. But it has nothing to do with COVID. Good, absolutely good call.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to review and potentially vote on the FY23 proposed budget with the $1 increase, which we'll clarify.
So this committee's done a lot of work to review all of the different articles and different reductions that we discussed pretty heavily last week. And the $1 increase is to the budget as a whole, using last year's charge to the local taxpayer. And so we've done that calculation. We've checked it with city administrator to make sure that we are in the right area. And we have honed this budget down to $1. And so that's the increase that we talked about last Wednesday. So I don't have any surprises today. That's the item before you and open for discussion. $1 to the mill rate. My apologies. Yes, $1 to the mill rate. Change from last year to this year.
Just to be clear, based on where we were at, the local ask on the mill rate is around $12. Is that right? Total?
Yes, this would put the ask for us at $11.73 for school in total.
Out of a mill rate of around 30.
That's correct. With this budget as proposed is $11.72. And last year it was $10.73.
Ms. Whitlow.
So you mentioned a $12. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
the mill rate is projected, and City Councilor Scott can correct me, but I think the mill rate is projected to be something around $30 per thousand. Last year it was 28 and change. The actual dollar amount that is asked for by the school for the local contribution is, it was 1073 last year. It's now going to be, where ours would be 1172 of that $30. The remainder of it is municipal, which would be public works, fire, police, and some for county. So we're making up something less than 40, we're making up $11.72 of a $30 mill rate. So we're significantly less than a third. So that's what the dollar is on the mill rate. It's not a dollar increase in our budget, but what did we say, Jacob? Every penny we asked for was $21,700 or something like that?
21.2 is the number we've been working with.
That was the number we were working with.
So I don't know what I heard. I heard it $12 somewhere thrown around. Maybe you just estimate rounding up.
Well, no, I knew it was some. The 1172 is, I knew it was somewhere in that 12, because we'd been on several sides of it based on the previous reductions before the last round, we'd been up around $12. Now it's at 1173. So. Questions? Comments? Ms. Whitlow?
So I guess this would be the time to advocate for the grant writer position that I've mentioned previously. I'd want to have a conversation around, and I don't know if we have the numbers because I didn't ask for these numbers to be brought to us, but what we have for grant funds that come in annually, approximately, who's doing that work. And I guess if you have those numbers or an estimate, that'd be good.
We can get pretty close. Carrie can look pretty quickly between title. I could tell you that the eSurf piece is a bit of an anomaly. We've had to bring extra staff in, and Jenny Derrigan is our lead for that work. And the hard thing with grants is there's the grant writing piece to acquire grants and additional funding. And we're always open to those efforts, so long as we know what it means in the long run. We also want to be smart about those things, because implementing them, developing the budget, the reporting that is required, some on different monthly intervals, some annual intervals, all that work has to be done to maintain the grants. And I also want to be very careful that any grants we take on, we don't marry ourselves to expensive long haul positions or costs that when the grant ends, it requires you to maintain things. That happened a few years back, maybe 5-7 years ago. We had a significant grant sunset, and it required the district to take on something like 5 or 6 positions full time. And it was a very tough year to do that. So we'd want to be mindful of those things. But Karen, did that give you enough time to look up some numbers?
So a question for Member Whitlow, are you asking to possibly add that to our budget right now, which would increase the dollar?
Yes, it would, but inevitably would bring in more revenue. But we can't add the revenue that's not there yet to offset that. But yes, it would.
So I'm just going to be honest. I don't think that we're going to get more than $1. I'm just putting that out there. I'm honestly fearful that we're going to get some pushback to lower it another 35 cents like we did last week. And I don't know how we're going to do that, but there's no guarantee. And I'm fearful that if we even attempt to go, and I understand where you're going with this, because I think it's actually a very important piece too, because it could possibly give us revenue in the future. But if we're going to look at that, then we need to be prepared to look at what are we going to take away to make it that $1, if you understand my meaning.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate your perspective. And and I understand where we're at as far as our needs and what the city council will allow. But I do have to say, every once in a while, I'm looking at grants out there, and there's so much money. I mean, I would have to say billions of dollars that are given away every year to schools, nonprofits, and it blows my mind that not every organization would have a grant writer, no matter what kind of business that you have. There is so much money. You know, just today before I came, I was looking, and there was, you know, gifted and talented grants, equity grants, training for teachers to learn and be better with students with disabilities. I've found grants for like water treatment for things that we've had issues with. I mean, this is just me taking 10 minutes here and there, just scrolling through for my own job. When I see these, I couldn't imagine what we could have if we actually had somebody dedicating 8 hours a day to researching grants, collaborating with directors and administrators, and see what their needs are. That I just think that could be a crucial piece. And I know that the people who are doing the grant writing now probably have other jobs to do, that they don't want to spend their time writing grants, but know that they kind of have to get things going and get more money. So.
Ms. Eames.
Thank you. Grant writing is a very specialized talent with a certain set of skills that you learn over time. And so I am convinced that hiring a grant writer who's dedicated to this purpose would pay off in the long run. I also am totally convinced that we can't go over $1 this year, but I would really ask that the administration think about next year, when you're planning the budget next year, to consciously put in, as we did this year with the Medicare billing, think about how that could pay off in the long run if we put it in at first. So that would be my request, that it be considered for next year.
One other approach that could be considered as we do the things that we've talked about doing, if we actually land where we hope to land, we may find an opportunity throughout the year. We could be heads up on that. And then if something avails itself, to bring it to you. Like if the revenue is 500,000 or 600,000 instead of 4, you know, that's a conversation that might strike that up to say, you know, I'd bring it to you, obviously, should we consider adding this position at this time? I don't have strong oppositions to the idea behind it. And Member Whitlow has brought this to me. She's shared grants that she has found that have all been positive in conversation and looking at, but she's right. There's no one that has the dedicated time to continue to chase those things. And so it's not without very good points that it should be considered. I just am really scraping to try to stay where we're at when the classroom's connected to being at that target of $1. So it's that scale piece. The real argument, though, that I think has to be considered is, could this position pay for itself? And the reality is it may be able to, but if we add it to the budget, it'd be an expense, and you know, it probably 2.5, 3 cents on the mill rate, just for consideration.
So I have an answer for you. We annually have about $10 million in grant funds that we currently apply for, receive, and manage. Add another 30 to 40 million with COVID relief and ESSER funds. We have added some capacity with those funds to help us with those grants to manage. So about 10 million annually, most of that being federal grants, but we also do have some smaller grants as well that different pockets of people apply for and manage and receive.
Out of that 10 million, did you say that was COVID relief funds, or that's beyond that?
10 million is what we we receive annually, give or take, and most of those are federal funds like our Title I, our Title II, our Title IV funds, Title III. The COVID relief funds are in about 30 to 40 million. That's above and beyond that have the sunset date that we've talked about.
And that's not an annual number. So the 10 is more annual and that can fluctuate depending on what we receive. But the bigger number she's talking about was that's that multi-year one lump sum. We don't get that every year. That would be unbelievable.
So $10 million annually that we receive in grants when we don't even have a designated grant writer is pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, we do have someone that is her job. Jenny Derrigan manages all of our federal grants. So she writes them, she makes sure budgets are ready, she oversees all the projects and the oversight. And of course, the business office helps with some of the invoicing and all of that, but that is her job, to oversee those $10 million in federal grants.
And at the school level, I know there's some grants, smaller grants that teachers can apply for on their own, or 21st century or things like that. That's included in that 10 million also?
Yes.
Okay. I've been involved in a lot of conversations lately where I've received feedback where grants are not sustainable, grants disappear, there's not enough grant funding out there. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that even with somebody who's doing that work, but without somebody whose full-time job is just strictly writing grants, there's $10 million and there's who knows how much more that's just sitting on the table that could benefit our district. It's important for people that don't deal with this a lot to realize that there is a lot of essentially free money out there. And I know it's not free. I know that if we get a grant for a 3-year program, then in year 4, we have to find a way to support it locally and things like that. So I know that it's not necessarily free money, but there is a lot of grant funding out there available. And I think Ms. Whitlow makes a good point that we should try to get as much of that in our district as we can.
Karen, so there is a person that's dedicated to grant writing. Is that their position? Is that their title? Is they a grant writer? Is that what we have for a job description?
No, her job description is she's the coordinator of all of our ESSER, so No Child Left Behind. Or not, that's not what it's called now, but Every Child Succeeds Act. That's it. Student, not child, begins with S. That is her job, that she oversees all of those mostly the title grants, 1, 2, 3, 4. But that is her sole job. She also helps with our gifted and talented grant, some of those other smaller ones as well.
And those federal grants have allowances for portions of administrative costs. So there's different rules for each one, but that's in part how that's paid is through those allowances for administrative costs within the federal grants.
Right, correct.
Ms. Scott.
So back to the budget. So you're presenting to City Council next Tuesday. My question is, but City Council's not voting on next Tuesday. You're just presenting do we have to vote tonight on a bottom line, or can we wait till we hear more from them? And the only reason I'm asking, I didn't know if there was I couldn't remember if there was a legal reason why we had to, or if we had to make sure that we voted before it went to council for a vote.
I actually don't know if there's a legal reason. I think it's part of the municipal process that the school committee adopt a budget that be presented to the city. These timeframes are very well established. We work with Kathy on them and also Heather from the city. But as far as your legal or charter question, I'm actually not certain. I think it's just kind of the way it's always been done. I would say, though, I could see some precedents of it. I think this committee is very strong in its conversation and its dialogue about where we're at, and have really worked through some things pretty aggressively. Not all committees are that way. I think sometimes there's some transparency questions with the superintendent, and so that might be why there's a expected vote of the school committee to endorse a number before it's presented to them. Again, I feel comfortable with it. I don't know if there's a legal precedence, but I know that not all processes have run like this.
So I guess that's what I was wondering. So that we wouldn't have to say so here's my concern. I'm going to be very honest and frank. We make that vote tonight and we're in the paper this week, right? It says we voted and approved that. And we may have to come back and have a conversation because city council at this point has not made a definitive decision. We're still we just start this week, really, our double meetings. So, for example, we've already started going through a lot of our spots, but we've got general government tomorrow night, planning and code enforcement. There's a few different things that we're doing tomorrow night. And then we start having our general conversation on Thursday. So we've not even had those, even though I've reached out and spoken to some, where you at? And I think that we can maybe get that. I think $1 is still going to be a hard sell. No matter what we do, it's going to be a hard sell. But if we're not there yet, we don't know. Next Tuesday, I'm sure we're gonna have to know by then.
Yeah, and I think, by process, the city council's always been able to give feedback as part of that municipal structure before they vote. And so we read that and we take that feedback, and then it comes back to the committee. We do have an opportunity in between, or we can call a meeting if we need to. I think last year we had to call a meeting. And then it actually wasn't passed at the vote level for the city last year, and we did some more work. So I would say even with a vote tonight to support the number proposed with all of the reductions that have been made, again, around $3 million worth, and the increase we're asking for does not cover our contracted salary steps and benefits, I think is a number I feel comfortable moving forward with, while knowing we may have to revisit this conversation. But I think the feedback from the committee, the city council in their chambers will be an important part of the process. And it's intended to be that. So there may be a vote tonight that approves something or it shifts. We go present next Tuesday. It may provide us information that we have to revisit. But I think that's part of that voice process.
I just think that, from my perspective, an affirmative vote from us now definitely strengthens the presentation. We've spent a lot of time. We've gotten to a place where we agree with the superintendent's budget. If we show support for this budget, when he does present to the city council, they have to know, and we can make the clear statement that this is been supported at this level after significant discussion and review. And I think it strengthens the presentation rather than just going in and Jake saying, well, this is what I'm proposing. Well, he won't be just proposing it on his own. He will be proposing it for the district with our support. So I think it's important to go ahead and I think it's important to have the vote. We'll see how it comes out. Ms. Scott.
So then I would just reiterate that I think it's extremely important that if you're going to vote in favor of this budget tonight, we are with the superintendent next Tuesday when you present to city council. I think we all need to be there and show that we're in support of this and be ready for those conversations, because they may come up and we may have to talk some more. And I will keep a close eye and be able to inform you further. I don't know if we have a finance committee meeting tomorrow. Are we still doing that?
I believe we left one penciled if we needed it.
I thought so
and,
too.
We can have that or schedule others as needed.
Okay, because I'm not sure that we need that tomorrow, but we may need it after I hear a little more tomorrow night and this week.
So I had a lot of conversations over the weekend from constituents and general public and all the people. And it's hard to have those conversations because they don't sit here. They don't talk to the finance committee. They don't talk to Karen. They don't talk to Jake. They don't talk to the rest of your staff that are doing all these things. So for me personally, I see what goes into the budget and how it works, and that we cut 36 positions. And, I think we're coming to the table responsibly. But for the general public, they see $1 or they see any increase, and that's, an immediate red flag for them. And I did have quite a few people that said that they will, if it goes to vote, they will not vote on the $1 increase. And so then you have to get into conversations of, well, I also don't like that I have to pay, that I fill up my vehicle and I stop at $65, even though it's not full. Like, that gives me hives. And the fact that my electricity is through the roof and the oil in my tank is at my house to heat my house is through the roof. But inflation is a real thing, and it's something that they also need to understand, that they're not only paying for their home inflation and gas and lights and stuff like that, but also now we also need to accrue those costs. But I also think it's hard too when you look, if you're moving to the area and your realtor pulls you a page and it gives you where Lewiston schools are ranked on a scale from 1 to 10, whatever they rank them in. And you look, and Lewiston schools are consistently at the bottom. So for them, they're saying, well, why are our schools so low, but yet our budget is constantly increasing? How do we get that to be higher? These are conversations, multiple people actually brought this to my attention and were conversations that we had. And I assured them that there's things that are going into place to hopefully make our schools better, make our schools stronger, keep that turnover to a minimum. So I'm just putting that out there for everyone, that I do think the $1 is going to be a hard sell. And I said to them, most of them, that if you come back and say no, I don't know what else we're going to say no to. I don't know what we would cut. I don't know what the finance committee or Jake or Karen or the rest of your team, what you would be comfortable with cutting, because I think we're at the bare minimum at this point.
We are at people at this point.
That was a conversation I had. I said, we've already cut almost 40 positions. If you are looking to decrease this anymore, we are looking at not having teachers to potentially fill spots. And that will mean no classroom or no, after school activities or no whatever. So I'm just putting the general consensus conversation that I had over the last couple weeks since we've gone into budget season, for everyone to, I'm sure you've had these conversations. People have come to you and also had the conversations. So, and again, Tanya, I do like your idea. I mean, who doesn't like the idea of free money? But I don't know if this is the year for that, unless there's something else that you think you can cut to put that in its place.
Ms. Whitlow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we need to be asking what the city council is doing for economic development and growth, so that we get more taxes from those businesses. Are we business friendly? I mean, so it can't be just what are we doing to cut everything. It's got to be what city council's doing to revitalize the city as well. And we all have to be working together and not shutting down business ideas and so there's just a lot there, and the pressure can't just all be on us. And we just need to really support city council, and we're hoping they'll support us as much as possible.
Well, that being said, I guess what I would like to see is a motion for us to support and approve the superintendent's budget as presented with the 99-cent increase. Somehow it sounds better at 99 cents than a buck for some reason. So we're even less than the dollar store, How did that happen? I mean, it was only $1 for years, right? There's no inflation, right? I mean, that's the reality, that everything, it doesn't matter where you turn, at the gas pump, at the dollar store or whatever, everything has gone up. Our budget cannot remain static any more than the city's budget can remain static. Ms. Scott, I think I may have touched a raw nerve there, but.
So let's repeat again. 2020, what did we drop from the budget? What did we do last? Let's just put this out there again. What happened the last 2 years and what the council approved? I don't want to throw last year's council into the bus or the year before, but I think this is an important piece that people realize in our community that that budget was not raised for 2 years.
Yeah, so back in 20, in the midst of COVID, I believe it was less than flat that was returned. I believe the city spent those dollars in their side of the budget. I believe it's to the tune of $700,000. Don't quote me, but I know that it was around there. And I know that last year was $815,000 was the shift. And in the grand scheme, when we look at again this year, I shared it last week, but it was 3.9, I believe it was, in increase just to people getting their step, paying their benefits, and we're asking for about $1 million less than that. And so because of those 36 positions that have been reduced, because of the program shifts that we're looking at to generate revenue, we feel good about how responsible this budget is. But we're 3 years in the making of inadequate funding locally, and we're doing everything we can to be as responsible as we can to every taxpayer, myself included, as a Lewiston resident, to stay within those parameters, to do the best we can to maximize the dollars. But yeah, you're right. We've been multiple years in a row of our contractual obligations far exceeding our local contribution.
Ms. Ames.
Thank you. It seems to me there's a perverse incentive built into the system where the city council gets to push on our budget, and then it sounded like could use what they gained from our budget in theirs. That seems like a very strange setup. I don't believe every town does it this way. I would love to have seen a charter amendment there, but that didn't happen, I gather. But really, that just seems like a very perverse incentive that we need to name, flag, and, wave our hands about.
I think that, to Ms. Hurd's point, people are saying, how do we improve the schools? Well, making deeper staff cuts and having more kids in each classroom and offering less services is hardly a recipe for improving the outcomes. If we're going to create the kind of school system that we would really want to have, it costs money. And we've been cutting it and cutting it. And unfortunately, the more times you cut it, the end result becomes exactly what you don't want to see. So I think that, part of this whole discussion really has to be around what is the long-term ultimate goal here? Is it to improve the schools, improve the image? Or is it to just try to drive taxes down and not provide the services? And many of the services, we don't have any choice. They're mandated and we don't have any way around them. Those are costs that we have to, no different than the increase in the minimum teacher pay. That was handed down by the legislature. That had a huge impact on our total salary line. And there's nothing we can do about it. So, it's all well and good for folks to say, gee, that's a lot. Well, it is a lot, but some of it's totally out of our control. You're in no more control of some of these items that we're talking about than you are when you pull up to the gas pump. And that's the reality of where we're at today. Ms. Hurd.
I was also wondering if, I know sometimes we're seen in a not so great light, just due to the news and the newspaper and this and that and everything. And I feel like those negative things are what comes up first. But Ashley and I were just kind of sitting here at the beginning and talking about the nutrition contest that was won and the robotics and all that stuff, like, is there a way that we can bring more of those positive things like out into the public and to the front? I obviously knew about the nutrition thing because I follow McMahon's Facebook page, but I probably wouldn't have known that if I wasn't a parent of McMahon and I didn't follow them. So that the rest of the city can see like all of these good things that our kids are doing in school and what they're learning and how they're growing and how they're all the things.
Ms. Scott.
I do want to say that the mayor is doing a fantastic job regularly recognizing the students and what's going on. Again, tomorrow night, we have the robotics team coming. Tomorrow night, we're also going to be recognizing early childhood education services in our community and those that work at preschools and stuff like that. So I know that the mayor is very much not, but I agree. I think that there is more that can be done. I don't know. I mean, when you take the pictures, Jake, you put that out there, I'll share that. I'll share that stuff all over the place and we could all do that. I mean, we're all, well, these days I'm not on social media as much as I used to be because, well, it's crazy, but I would share that.
Sorry, where do they go when you take those pictures?
We share some, sometimes I have to check for permissions and things first, so, but we do put some things up. Yeah. Webpage, social media, those kinds of things.
Ms. Whitlow.
I know we're still talking about budget, but I think Ms. Hurd is spot on. I do recall when we had our city council school board retreat at the Green Ladle at the beginning of the year, the mayor specifically asked, what are we doing to promote, market our schools? You know, the last 2 years, all it was negative media for schools. All the school board did was argue and fight, and that's not this school board. And I don't want people to think all school boards every 2 years are like that. So I think Ms. Hurd is right when she says we need to do more. So I know that being a superintendent, you've got so much time on your hands. I don't know why you're not putting stuff out there. But I don't know how we can do more, but I think that's a great idea.
Director Callahan is doing a phenomenal job with that lately. I've been reposting his stuff on a regular basis. I mean, they've been doing a great job at LRTC in promoting and talking, showing what the students are doing. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on that stuff. So.
Okay. Well, I think under the circumstances, I'll make a motion. So I know it's a little bit unusual, but I'm well within my rights to do it. I'm going to move that we adopt and support the superintendent's budget with a 99-cent increase as presented. And it's seconded by Mr. Beauparlant. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. And I think that being able to go to the city council with unanimous support of this, I just think it speaks volumes. We've done our heavy lifting. It's time for everybody to realize that we cannot continue to cut. This is a responsible budget in a difficult year. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Mr. Superintendent.
I was just going to add, the difference hasn't been just here in the work that this group has done. It's been different from a leadership perspective in our district to find that transparency, share it right out loud, talk about change and efforts that we're going to make. And we'll present those things to the city council. But I would also say that, at least from my chair, it's been a different conversation with city staff. We have had city councilors reach out and ask some questions, been having a dialogue there. So it's not like it once was, but I think they have some tough decisions before them also. They have contracts that grow also. And so it'll be a tough conversation, but I appreciate the unanimous support to bring this budget forward, and I look forward to the next steps in the process. So hopefully you can all make it next Tuesday evening at the city council meeting.
Ms. Whitlow.
So I would really like to continue to keep this grant writer position on the radar. I know that we have hired or approved to have a main care biller where we can possibly gain another 400,000 or 500,000, which is fantastic. But I want us to be mindful, if we had a grant writer, we could be bringing in millions. So let's look at that perspective there. But I would like to look at the grant, not the grant writer, the main care biller, and what they're able to bill and collect on for next budget season, and where are we, and maybe we can put in a grant writer with those extra funds there. So, thank you.
Ms. Parks.
We don't have the normal like community announcement thing on the agenda tonight. So when everyone's done, if I could just speak for 1 minute, that would be fine.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think that there's a couple, I wasn't going to go to adjourn just yet. There were no committee reports and there were no community announcements here. So I think from the committee standpoint, we've already heard from policy. That was quite extensive. Finance has been, well, no, we have to do it. Finance, I think we've heard quite a bit from finance as we discuss the budget. So those two items. Facilities, we had a facilities meeting last week, which we discussed several items. And so there is work being done at that level. So those committee reports, I think we're all set on. Are there other committee reports that someone would like to? Ms. Parks.
For the reinstatement of the Dropout Prevention Committee, I've been collaborating with the principal at the high school and Caitlin, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Urgis, okay. And it looks like they may have identified a student for that. And then I've communicated with the LEA president or interim president to identify some of the other roles that are required by the state thing. So that's in the development stages. So soon we'll be able to have reports out on that for progress that we're making.
Sue, I don't have my calendar with me. What is the next social studies? April 14th, social studies.
Bruce, I'm going to interrupt that. Just did this a few weeks back. Remember, all of a sudden, everything just dropped off. Yeah, I know, but the camera has stopped functioning. Just about everything has stopped functioning. And I didn't touch a thing. It just dropped off. So I think